Whether it was 1999 when we got our first look at Halo, or 2023 when we're looking at the future of what's being added, there's been a lot of different weapons in Halo, and the UNSC side of things have some really unique variety when it comes to weapons and how they've changed over the years. So why don't we take a closer look at every single UNSC weapon across Halo. Let's see which ones made it into the games, which ones didn't, and maybe talk about the ones that were iconic as well. Ready, set, go, but wait. No sponsor for today, and January and February are usually slower months when it comes to YouTube ad revenue, so if you want to support content like this, maybe consider supporting us over on Patreon. Even if you can only pledge for a couple of months, it does go a long way in helping us make content like this, or buy some limited run waifu cups from GamerSupps, or get some GamerSupps while you're at it, and use code RocketSloth. That also supports us as well. So let's go ahead and dive into Halo Combat Evolved. Now right away, the sandbox for weapons when it comes to Combat Evolved was much smaller than later Halo games, this time for the human side of things, only having 5 weapons upon release. We had the assault rifle, which was really iconic back in 2001, because to get this idea of a future sci-fi game, this gun having a little tiny screen on it showing how much ammo you have was like a really big and iconic deal back in the day. Like, look, just like that, built into the gun, you can see how much ammo you have. It wasn't like a little HUD element. It was just a little detail that went a really long way in building the universe. Now, this version of the assault rifle had 60 rounds in it in a magazine, and it shot really aggressively, and I always remembered thinking that this gun was really, really loud compared to all the other guns. I don't know if that was just me, but you remember this sound. Okay, then by far one of the most iconic weapons to be introduced in Halo, the Magnum. In so many games, the secondary pistol is just like a little throw-in weapon, but this thing fully was so strong, it became a whole meta in the multiplayer side of things. So many games were played of just Magnums only on Hang 'em High. Not only does it have a scope, but the gun was incredibly strong, so you could pop the shields and go for a headshot pretty easily. And this is probably one of the most iconic and best iterations of this gun to ever exist. It was maybe a little bit too overpowered, but when it comes to first-person shooters, I feel like it's always better to have the weapon be too strong than having it be too weak and nobody likes it, or it's not viable. Then we move on to the shotgun, which, man, this thing actually was really fun to use in Combat Evolved, especially if you're playing campaign on a higher difficulty. A shotgun at the right moment kind of feels like a lifesaver. Like, it's this lucky find that will help you survive just a little bit further in a level. Sure, maybe it was a little bit too strong back in Combat Evolved, but I think the Combat Evolved version was pretty good overall. And then there was the sniper rifle. Now this thing was really cool. It had 2 different zooms to it. You had 4 shots. You could see the streak of the bullet come out of the weapon, which looked really cool. And there was even this night vision toggle that let you see at night, which was helpful in like Truth and Reconciliation, I guess. I don't know. In other games like Call of Duty, when you have a sniper rifle, you kind of have to just guess and aim where your shot's going to go, and it becomes this whole thing. And Halo, on the flip side, lets you know exactly where your bullet's going to go, which adds this whole extra level of skill to the weapon, where even if you're de-scoped, you can still do some massive damage with just no-scoping because of the fact that you have this reticle right in the middle of your screen telling you pretty much exactly where your shot's going to go. It's a unique take for the sniper rifle, and it worked at making Halo stand out as a unique game. I think this is a big reason why this sniper rifle hasn't been changed too dramatically over the entire Halo franchise, because for the most part early on they got the sniper rifle right the first time around. Then there's the good old rocket launcher. This thing in multiplayer was great. It pretty much could guarantee you could get at least a kill unless you're really bad with it. But you get 2 shots, 2 opportunities to make it count. Or if you're playing in the campaign, you may have accidentally killed yourself and your teammate because they walked in front of you. Nonetheless, this rocket launcher was pretty cool. It had a simple zoom, which could help you kind of peek ahead at stuff. Then we have the UNSC grenades, and these things are actually really big if you think about it for the size of a grenade. Like, this is bigger than like a baseball here. Still, they're cool. They caused explosions, and we could even do some early grenade jumps back in the CE days. A welcome addition to the game. There was supposed to be a flamethrower that was going to be included in the release of Combat Evolved, though it did get cut from the release. However, the flamethrower would be brought back later on when Halo Combat Evolved came to the PC. Now, interestingly enough, this flamethrower does kind of have an ammo count from 100 that'll just go down as you use this flamethrower. And while it might not have the most range, if you're within a close-ish range of this flamethrower, it is very deadly and can just completely wipe out a Spartan pretty fast. Now, before Combat Evolved released, we did see a little bit of what Halo was going to be in the late 90s and into 2000, and Marcus Leto even shared some video footage a couple of years ago of some cut content from this early version of Halo. Now, what's really interesting is in this footage, we can actually see some early versions of weapons that would make its way into Halo Combat Evolved, though with some changes along the way. And it is, of course, cool to see how these weapons would evolve from this early build into what we would see in the final version of the game. But there's also some weapons that didn't even make their way into the final release of the game, which are cool too. Like there was this chain gun, which is kind of like a minigun, which, as we know, would later be iterated into Halo 3. There's also this really cool looking machete. This thing just looked like it would have been a lot of fun. I'm surprised it never made its way into a Halo release in the game form, especially because if you look at the difficulties back in the day, this machete is clearly in the difficulty design. It would have been an interesting weapon, maybe something that could be comparable to an energy sword in one way or another. There was also a spear gun, which was labeled as a Lamprey sub-ed, and it likely would have been used for some sort of underwater combat against sea creatures. It would have been pretty cool. Maybe this would stick to targets like the Needler or something, or it would act as something like a spiker. This idea eventually maybe came back in Halo Infinite in the form of the skewer. And there was also this submachine gun that looked pretty cool as well. Okay, let's go over to Halo 2 next. Now, we did lose a few little things from Combat Evolved with Halo 2, like the assault rifle was sunsetted. Also, the Magnum would be replaced. And instead, we got a battle rifle, which was a long-range burst version of the assault rifle that was intended to play similarly to how the Magnum played as Halo 2's precision weapon instead. So the pistol got turned into this little sidearm gun, which was fun, but not really the strongest thing in the world. And then the SMG was introduced as we no longer had a full auto closer range weapon, and we could dual wield these bad boys, and it looked really cool. It was a lot of fun. I'm not really sure how viable it was. I think the assault rifle usually worked a little bit better compared to the SMG, but we were seeing the sandbox expand, and that was what was really spectacular about Halo 2. Now, some of the other guns like the sniper and the rocket launcher, of course, would return. Also, the sniper rifle's viewfinder here changed from Combat Evolved to look like this, which was a little bit more clear. You could see what was in the image finder, and this would change again in Halo 3 later on. Also, with Halo 2, the rocket launcher could lock onto vehicles, which was really handy. When it came to multiplayer, the shotgun didn't really seem to be as strong as it had once been. The shotgun had a lot of ammo before you would have to reload, but it also seemed like the gun had been nerfed, so you had to use a lot more ammo to kill a target. We also were introduced to the machine gun turret, which, well, we had one on the back of the Warthog in Combat Evolved. This time they were just set up in various places that we could use. And then there was a handful of Halo 2 weapons that were never included in the game, though at one point they were planned on being included. Once again, the flamethrower was here. There was apparently supposed to be some sort of flashbang grenade that's referenced in the documents. There's also references to a general purpose machine gun, which would have been kind of like a first-person heavier machine gun, maybe something like the SAW in Halo 4, but different. And then a machine gun turret with a grenade launcher on it, and that would have been really fun to use. And then in Halo 2 Vista, in the custom and forge mode, they did introduce the silenced SMG, which was really cool. It was silenced and it shot kind of a little bit differently, I believe. It never really was popularized during the Vista time, but it definitely was officially in the game, and it would come back in Halo 3 ODST later on, which we'll talk about when we get there. Then going into Halo 3, we got more guns than we had ever gotten before. Besides some new revisions, like this time the Magnum looked more like Halo Combat Evolves, but it still shot slower than anything else. It was kind of awesome though, dual wielding. The SMGs were back and a little bit stronger than before. We got the assault rifle back, but this time it had less ammo in its magazine. The bullets were definitely quieter than the Combat Evolved version, and it was at least a very consistent gun you could rely on. The BR was back, though they took out some of those button shortcuts you could do back in the Halo 2 days to like animation cancel. The shotgun was definitely upped in damage, being more powerful, but with a little bit less range and less ammunition. But by far, the most exciting weapon that was added during the Halo 3 era was definitely the Spartan laser. This thing is just amazing. I don't know. It was a lot of fun to use, even though you had to charge it up. It led to a lot of really interesting and hilarious moments in the multiplayer side of things, and in general, it was just a pretty useful and unique weapon. The rocket launchers in Halo 3 would not lock on, so the Spartan laser could come in handy here. And then they also introduced a missile pod, which was like a lock-on missile for flying vehicles, and it was a lot of fun to shoot, but also it was an interesting thing when you're flying a vehicle to try to be wary of and avoid. If you're a good enough pilot, you can dodge the missile pod shots, which added this extra skill level to it, and it was just a really cool weapon to balance some things out. Also in Halo 3, they introduced the 7-Wood, which was a golf club. It worked pretty much the same way as a gravity hammer did, but it looked cool. As far as weapons that didn't quite make the Halo 3 cut, we don't know too much about all of the weapons. It looks like in an early build of Halo 3, there was some sort of missile launcher type gun that we can partially see, but we don't really know what it would have turned into, but that ended up getting cut. Okay, then Halo 3 ODST would release and added a couple of new things as well, which was really cool. We had the silenced SMGs brought back from Halo 2 Vista, which was amazing, even though we couldn't dual wield in this game. And this new pistol, the Auto Mag pistol, which had a sight on it, it was silenced, and it was actually really effective. It was a cool weapon to be added in, and it probably was one of the best handguns since the Combat Evolved Magnum. Way later down the line in Halo 3 on the Master Chief Collection, they would actually add the silenced SMG and the Auto Mag pistol into the game as well, which actually led for some pretty cool multiplayer gameplay with some new weapons. It's also worth noting though, with ODST, while the sandbox was mostly the same as Halo 3's, there was a few weapons that weren't in the game, like the energy sword and the BR. But with the BR, it's even more interesting because in the cutscene here on NMPD at the end of the level, once you beat it, you can see an officer holding a BR, though there's never actually a BR that's usable in the ODST campaign. Also, in a later MCC update, they would retroactively add in weapons that were not a part of ODST's weapon pool into Firefight, and they did re-add the BR into that. So nowadays you can play with the BR, but originally and in the campaign, no BR. In Halo Reach, we did see multiple different weapons return. We had the assault rifle, which had a new design compared to what it looked like in previous titles. We got a brand new version of the Magnum, which for the first time felt more like Combat Evolved's Magnum. It wasn't quite as strong, but it did have a lot of the same functionality from the Combat Evolved era, even so much that they added a new game mode later on when Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary release, where this Magnum would shoot and kill in the same amount of damage as the Magnum back in the Combat Evolved days would. We got to see the return of the rocket launcher, the sniper rifle. The shotgun was refined a bit more, this time being a little bit stronger even than the Halo 3 version of the shotgun. And the Spartan laser was back, and it had this little viewfinder looking thing, which was kind of neat. There was also the grenade launcher, which was a new addition, and it was pretty cool. It could shoot like a noob tube, but you could also EMP stuff with it. And the cool thing about it is if you held down the trigger, you could delay the detonation of the explosive. So essentially you could kind of angle your range and hit targets more accurately with this whole new type of mechanic, which was really cool. You could even really just hold it down for a long time and wait for the right moment to blow it up, which was really awesome. There was no battle rifle in Halo Reach. It was removed and replaced with a DMR, and this time around the DMR was a single shot weapon, not 3-round burst, and it had bloom, so it was a little bit more of a controversial addition to the game. We also saw the target designator, which was this thing that would just blast hellfire from the sky. That was awesome. And the golf club named the 7-Wood would make a return from Halo 3. Now moving on to the 343 era of things, we thought we'd bring back our local expert of all things 343 and the biggest Halo 4 fan, Luke, to talk about the weapons that were added in the 343 era.
I love talking about the 343 era games, and I'm totally not being held in an unknown location and forced to record this. Anyways, when we get to Halo 4, the BR is back, but the DMR stayed as well. The BR did get a big redesign, and it looks quite different. It now got this holographic looking sight on it instead of like a sniper scope like the old ones. Then we got the AR, sniper, rocket launcher, Spartan laser, Magnum, shotgun. They're all back, and some of them are drastically redesigned. Then we got a new addition, the sticky detonator, and that thing is fun as hell. Whether it's in the campaign or you make a multiplayer lobby where everybody has sticky detonators, like a custom game, it is one of the most fun weapons to use in any Halo game. And also the railgun and the saw are new, and especially especially the saw to me is pretty fun to use. The railgun also is very effective. Then also some armor abilities return, like the jetpack, and you know, those are UNSC type arsenal things. And while there isn't many cut weapons from Halo 4, at least on the UNSC side, there is a Hunter LMG that is cut that kind of looks like George's LMG, and it probably would have been like that chain gun type gun that they've been trying to implement into Halo for like a long time. Then also you can find the SMG in the files, and there's like a model for it. I think it looks mostly like the Halo 3 model or the Halo 2 model. It looks maybe a little cleaner, but yeah, that also didn't make it into the game. Then of course there's Halo 2A, which kind of has its own weapon pool, even though it's kind of like a modded version of Halo 4 really. But there is the AR, there is the SMG coming back in a more classic design. There's a suppressed SMG as well with the classic design. There's a battle rifle, there is the Magnum, there's the Survivor Magnum, which is a special variant of the Magnum. There's the shotgun, back to a more classic look as well. The Survivor shotgun, another variant for flat game types. There's the sniper rifle, and there's the rocket launcher. Also, dual wielding is back, so you can dual wield SMGs or dual wield pistols again, for example. Okay, when it comes to Halo 5, we got the AR, BR, DMR, shotgun, sniper, rocket launcher. Though the rocket launcher does actually majorly look different. The Magnum, the Spartan laser, the railgun, and the saw, they all return though. The SMG is also back. There's also the Hydra, which is a new missile launcher. There's cool variants for the Warzone game type, like the Gauss turret that you can pick up and carry around. There's the Halo C Magnum. There is the Halo 2 BR, obviously. There is the Halo Reach grenade launcher, and it is called Bro Pipe, which is actually hilarious. And then also there's a more classic looking rocket launcher that would also return. And on top of that, you have the chain gun being part of the game, which, you know, as we talked about earlier, was an idea for Halo Combat Evolved all the way back in maybe 1999. But it's finally here, and there's also a George variant, which is awesome for Halo Reach fans, like myself. And of course, not to forget, in addition to a lot of UNSC weapons, is the ADS mode, like for the Magnum, for example. Then there is some cut Halo 5 weapons. There is concept art for an arm-mounted railgun, which actually looks metal as hell. There is the Class Cutter, which looks kind of like a tool, and I feel like that would have tied into the whole mining setting of Meridian, you know? It was just like a tool that workers would use, and then you would repurpose it as a gun, which actually sounds like an awesome concept, and I'm sad they didn't include that, because that would have been a cool little weapon. Almost reminds me of like the gun from Dead Space that was also some tool, and then Isaac repurposed it. Anyways, I'm getting off track. There's a cluster version of the grenade launcher that also got cut, and it would have unleashed a bunch of grenades at once you shot it up in the sky, or at enemies. Then Halo Infinite actually only has 4 OG UNSC weapons return: the BR, the AR, the sniper, and the rocket launcher. Then the Hydra from Halo 5 is also back, you know, so when I said OG, I meant like, you know, guns that we've seen before Halo 5, like OG, if that makes sense. Anyways, the Bulldog replaces the shotgun, the Sidekick replaces the Magnum, and the Commando, I guess in my book, kind of replaced the DMR. But then there's also the M392 Bandit rifle that is announced, which is coming out season 3, I believe, that is also supposed to be a DMR. So I'm not sure what the difference between the Commando and the Bandit rifle is yet. They seem pretty much like 2 DMRs to me, but maybe I'm just lost. Then also in Halo Infinite, there was some leftover files or maybe some cut weapons that were UNSC related, like the shotgun that looks more close to the Halo 5 version of the shotgun. Then there is also the Halo 5 version of the saw. It seems like it uses mostly the same animations, and that's about it. I don't know if this is just leftover development things or if this was something that was intended for Halo Infinite and was then cut. Also, there is the golf club in the files, so that returns. Well, it didn't return, but that returned in Halo Infinite in the files, at least, just not in game. And that's it as far as UNSC weapon goes throughout all the Halo games. That is all the Halo games and all their UNSC weapons. If we missed any, let us know down in the comments below. And huge thanks to our Patreon supporters. If you want to help us out, go check out our Patreon, patreon.com/rocketsloth, and throw a couple dollars our way. That'd be very neato. Ooh, also, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but actually I have a video done for a new project we're working on, and I posted a full video on that Patreon. So if you want to watch it early before it goes live anywhere else, you can do that right now on our Patreon. It won't be out for a couple more days, so there's some early content you can get there. Anyways, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time with a brand new video.